Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and felt someone's presence before they even said a word? That energy, that confidence, that silent power? You see, real dominance, real influence doesn't come from talking more. It comes from talking less, but making every word count. Most people believe that power comes from speaking more, from being the loudest voice in the room, from constantly asserting opinions. But the truth is, the most powerful people understand that listening is their greatest weapon. Listening is not passive, it's strategic. It allows you to gather information, read between the lines, and truly understand the motivations, desires, and fears of those around you. When you talk too much, you give away your position. You reveal your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, and sometimes even your weaknesses. But when you listen more than you speak, you gain something far more valuable: leverage. Think about it. In any conversation, the person who talks the most often feels like they are in control. They dominate the discussion, steer it in the direction they want, and assume they are leading. But in reality, they are exposing themselves. They are giving away their thoughts, their emotions, their biases. The person who listens, however, is gathering data. They are picking up on subtle cues, watching body language, and identifying what really matters to the other person. Great leaders, master negotiators, and powerful influencers all understand this concept deeply. They enter conversations with the mindset of an observer rather than a talker. They ask a few strategic questions, then they let the other person speak. And as they listen, they gather everything they need. What drives this person? What are they afraid of? What do they truly want? The moment you understand what someone wants, you have power over them. Because once you know what they desire, you can guide the conversation, the deal, or the situation in a way that serves your agenda. Listening also creates a sense of mystery and authority. When someone speaks less, people naturally pay more attention to what they do say. The less you reveal, the more people wonder what you're thinking. That curiosity alone gives you an edge. It forces others to engage with you differently, to seek your approval, to try to understand your perspective rather than simply arguing against it. That's why in high-stakes negotiations, the person who remains silent the longest often comes out on top. The other party fills the silence with unnecessary words, sometimes even revealing things they never intended to say. In everyday life, this principle applies just as strongly. Whether in business, relationships, or leadership, the person who listens more and speaks less always holds the advantage. If you want to truly influence people, stop trying to prove yourself with words. Instead, start observing. Pay attention to tone, choice of words, energy shifts, and body language. The things people don't say often reveal more than the things they do. A nervous hesitation, a quick glance away, a change in breathing. These are the real indicators of what's going on beneath the surface. And once you learn to read those cues, you no longer need to talk your way into control. You simply have it. Listening is also a tool for building deep trust. People don't want to be talked at, they want to be understood. When you give someone your full attention, when you show them that you are really listening, they naturally begin to trust you. And trust leads to influence. When people feel heard, they open up, they share more, they start to view you as someone who understands them, someone they can rely on. And in that moment, you gain the ultimate advantage, not because you spoke more, because you listened better. This is why the most powerful people speak less. They don't need to prove themselves with words. They let others reveal their hand while they sit back, absorb, and strategize. When they do finally speak, every word is intentional, precise, and impactful. Because they aren't guessing, they aren't rambling. They already know exactly what needs to be said. Control in any situation isn't about how much you speak. It's about how much power you hold over the conversation. People who talk excessively believe they are leading, but in reality, they are giving away their position. They are exposing their thoughts, emotions, and intentions without realizing that true control belongs to the one who remains composed, measured, and most importantly, silence. Silence creates tension. It forces others to wonder what you're thinking, to second-guess themselves, and to feel the weight of the moment. Human nature drives people to fill silence. Most are uncomfortable with it, seeing it as an awkward void that must be filled with words, explanations, or justifications. But those who understand power recognize silence as a strategic tool. When you resist the urge to respond immediately, you shift the dynamic of the conversation. The other person starts scrambling to fill the gap, often revealing more than they intended. They explain, justify, or even backtrack because they feel uneasy with the absence of immediate feedback. That's where control begins, when you force others into a position where they feel compelled to keep talking while you simply observe. In high-stakes situations, silence can be the deciding factor between winning and losing. In negotiations, for example, the first person to speak after a pause often gives up leverage. A buyer makes an offer and the seller stays silent. That silence creates discomfort. The buyer starts wondering, did I offer too much? Did I say something wrong? In that uncertainty, they might feel pressured to adjust their position before the seller even responds. Silence forces them to negotiate against themselves. This applies beyond business. It's relevant in relationships, leadership, and even conflicts. When emotions run high, most people react impulsively. They raise their voice, argue, and try to dominate through sheer volume. But the ones who remain quiet, who control their words and emotions, always have the upper hand. Their silence makes others uneasy, causing them to overextend themselves in an attempt to regain a sense of control. When someone expects a reaction from you and you withhold it, you take control of the situation. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, trying to pull you into an argument. The moment you engage emotionally, they win, because they've dictated the terms of the interaction. But if you remain silent, composed, and unshaken, their frustration grows, they begin to unravel. They push harder, trying to force a response, but the more they try, the more control you maintain. Your silence shows that their words have no power over you. It forces them to reassess their own behavior. Another advantage of silence is that it commands respect. When someone speaks sparingly but intentionally, people listen when they finally do. Those who talk too much dilute the impact of their words. But when a person of few words finally speaks, their voice carries weight. Others pay attention because they know that what's being said isn't just noise, it's something worth hearing. This is why powerful leaders don't engage in endless chatter. They observe, they calculate, and they only speak when their words will have maximum impact. Silence also gives you time to process and respond strategically rather than react emotionally. When someone confronts you, your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to argue back, to prove a point. But if you pause, take a breath, and hold back your words, you allow yourself to see the bigger picture. You begin to recognize what's truly being said, what the other person's motives might be, and what response, if any, will benefit you most. Emotional reactions are impulsive and often lead to regret. Strategic silence, on the other hand, keeps you in control and forces the other person to reveal more than they intended. People crave validation. They want to be acknowledged, agreed with, or at the very least opposed in a way that recognizes their importance in the conversation. When you remain silent, you deny them that validation. This frustrates them, makes them uncomfortable, and causes them to rethink their approach. In that moment, you control the direction of the conversation without even saying a word. Words have power, but only when used with precision. Most people speak without intention, filling the air with unnecessary details, explanations, and justifications. They believe that talking more will make them appear knowledgeable, persuasive, or dominant, but in reality, the opposite is true. The more someone speaks, the more they dilute their impact. Those who understand true power know that every word must serve a purpose. They don't waste energy on meaningless conversations. Instead, they speak only when necessary, making sure that when they do, their words carry undeniable weight. When someone speaks with precision, people listen. Their words aren't just background noise in a crowded conversation, they are the focal point. The most respected and influential individuals don't compete for attention by talking over others. They command attention by making every word count. This is what separates leaders from followers, decision makers from the undecided. A person who chooses their words wisely has control over how they are perceived. Their speech is deliberate, impactful, and impossible to ignore. Speaking with precision requires discipline. It means resisting the temptation to fill silences with unnecessary words. It means understanding that not every thought needs to be verbalized, and not every response needs to be immediate. Powerful communicators take their time, they pause. They measure their words before they speak, ensuring that each one serves a purpose. This ability to speak deliberately forces people to listen more intently, making their presence felt even in a room full of voices. When people talk excessively, they often reveal more than they intend. They expose their emotions, their insecurities, and their true intentions without realizing it. The more someone speaks, the more opportunities they create for contradictions, misinterpretations, or unintended disclosures. But those who master precision in speech avoid these pitfalls. They say only what is necessary, keeping their true thoughts and strategies hidden until the right moment. In negotiations, this skill is invaluable. The person who speaks less, yet with absolute clarity, always has the upper hand. When they do speak, their words shape the direction of the conversation, influence decisions, and leave no room for misinterpretation. They avoid filler words, vague statements, or emotional outbursts. Instead, they use direct, confident language that leaves an impression. This level of precision creates an aura of authority that others naturally respect. People remember concise, impactful statements far more than long-winded explanations. A powerful speaker knows this and structures their words accordingly. Instead of explaining an idea with 10 sentences, they condense it into 1 or 2, ensuring that their message is not only heard but retained. This efficiency in communication signals intelligence, confidence, and control. When someone speaks precisely, they demonstrate that they are in command of their thoughts, their emotions, and the situation at hand. Another advantage of speaking with precision is that it minimizes misunderstandings. Many conflicts arise not because of disagreements, but because of unclear communication. When people ramble, their message gets lost, leaving room for confusion and misinterpretation. But when a person speaks with clarity and purpose, there is no room for doubt. Their words leave a lasting impact and their intentions are understood exactly as they meant them to be. Those who master the art of precise communication also cultivate an air of mystery. When someone speaks only when necessary, people begin to wonder about their thoughts, their opinions, and their next move. This curiosity gives them an advantage in any interaction. Others lean in when they speak, pay closer attention, and take their words more seriously. Instead of being just another voice in the crowd, they become the voice that matters. The ability to pause before speaking is one of the most powerful tools in communication. Most people feel the need to respond immediately, filling every gap in conversation with words, but those who understand influence know that a well-timed pause can be far more impactful than any sentence spoken without thought. A pause signals control. It shows that a person is not reacting impulsively, but instead choosing their response deliberately. This subtle act forces others to stop and take notice, making them more attentive and engaged in what is about to be said. Pausing before speaking shifts the power dynamic in any conversation. It creates anticipation, making others lean in and listen more carefully. People are naturally uncomfortable with silence, and when one person embraces it, they take control of the interaction. Instead of rushing to fill the space, they allow the silence to work in their favor. This makes them appear more composed, confident, and authoritative. Their words are not driven by impulse, but by intention, and this level of control is something others instinctively respect. When emotions run high, pausing becomes even more critical. In heated discussions or debates, most people respond emotionally, saying things they later regret. A pause, however, gives time to process the situation and respond with clarity rather than emotion. It allows a person to assess what has been said, consider the best possible reply, and ensure that their response aligns with their goals. This level of restraint prevents unnecessary arguments and keeps control firmly in their hands. A pause can also shift the pressure onto the other person. When someone asks a difficult question or makes a bold statement, their expectation is usually for an immediate reaction. But when they are met with silence, instead, they start to feel uncertain. They begin questioning their own words, sometimes even filling the silence with further explanations or backtracking on their statements. This hesitation gives an advantage to the person who remains composed, as they now have the opportunity to guide the conversation in the direction they want. In negotiations, the pause is a game changer. The person who speaks first often loses leverage when an offer is made and met with silence. The other party starts to feel the weight of the moment. Their mind races with thoughts like, was that too low? Did I say something wrong? This internal discomfort often leads them to adjust their position before a single word is even spoken in response. A well-timed pause forces the other person to reveal more than they intended, giving a strategic advantage to the one who remains patient. Beyond negotiations, pausing also enhances credibility and authority in everyday communication. People who rush their words or speak too quickly often come across as nervous or unsure of themselves. But those who take their time, who allow their words to settle before continuing, project confidence and certainty. Their speech is measured, deliberate, and free from the distractions of filler words or unnecessary details. Others perceive them as more thoughtful, more intelligent, and more in control of their environment. Another advantage of the pause is that it allows for deeper listening. When a person isn't focused on responding immediately, they can fully absorb what is being said. This improves comprehension and enables them to respond in a way that directly addresses the other person's concerns, rather than simply waiting for their turn to speak. Strong communicators know that the best responses are not the fastest ones, but the most well-considered ones. The pause also amplifies impact. When someone speaks without pausing, their words can blend together, losing their significance. But when a pause is inserted at the right moment, it creates emphasis. It allows key points to land with greater force. The silence surrounding a statement makes it stand out, making it more memorable and more persuasive. Those who master this technique don't just communicate, they command attention. Energy is the most powerful form of communication. Long before words are spoken, energy is already setting the tone. The way a person walks into a room, the way they hold themselves, the way they make eye contact, all of these things speak louder than anything they could say. People respond to energy before they respond to words. Confidence, certainty, and authority can be felt before a single sentence is spoken. This is why those who understand power focus more on their presence than on their words. They know that if their energy is strong enough, they don't need to speak as much to command respect and attention. People often mistake dominance for loudness, thinking that being the most vocal person in the room is the key to influence. But true power comes from controlled, intentional energy. It's the energy of someone who knows exactly who they are, who doesn't need to prove themselves with excessive words. Their posture, their eye contact, their measured movements, these things create an unspoken message that says, I am in control. That kind of energy shifts the entire dynamic of any conversation or interaction. Others naturally adjust their behavior in response to it, even if they don't realize they're doing it. When someone lacks control over their energy, it shows in their speech. They talk too fast, they ramble, they over-explain. This comes from a place of insecurity, a subconscious attempt to gain validation. But those who have mastered their energy don't need to seek approval. They speak with certainty, their words slow and deliberate, not because they are hesitant, but because they don't feel the need to fill every silence. Their presence alone does most of the work, and their words are simply an extension of the power they already carry. Body language is a key part of this. A person who speaks less but carries themselves with strength automatically draws attention. Their shoulders are back, their movements are intentional, their expressions are composed. They make eye contact without hesitation, not as an act of intimidation, but as a signal of certainty. When they do speak, they don't rush, they let their words land, giving them time to sink in. This is why a quiet, confident person often has more influence than someone who constantly needs to talk to feel important. In high-stakes situations, the energy of silence is even more powerful than spoken words. A well-timed pause, a calm and steady gaze, a moment of stillness. These things create pressure. They force the other person to react, to reveal their thoughts, to adjust their approach. This is why the most dominant individuals are often the ones who don't need to say much at all. Their energy speaks for them. It creates an invisible force that others naturally respond to. This principle applies in leadership, business, and personal relationships. People follow those whose energy makes them feel safe, certain, and inspired. They trust those who carry themselves with unshakable confidence even in difficult situations. When a leader speaks, their words carry weight not just because of what they say, but because of the energy behind them. It's not about volume, it's about presence. A powerful presence makes every word more meaningful, every action more impactful. People can sense energy shifts instantly. When someone is nervous, they feel it. When someone is strong and composed, they feel that too. This is why controlling internal energy is so important. It's not just about appearing confident, it's about actually being confident. The more a person masters their own energy, the less they have to rely on words to make an impression. Others will feel their influence without needing an explanation. Those who dominate through energy don't waste time proving themselves through excessive talk. They know their presence alone commands attention. They don't seek to convince, they allow their certainty to do the work for them. This level of unspoken influence is what separates those who truly lead from those who are merely trying to be heard. Most people believe that speaking gives them control, but in reality, the listener holds the real power. Those who dominate conversations with constant talking expose themselves, revealing their thoughts, emotions, and intentions without realizing it. But the person who listens strategically, gathers information, understands motives, and stays one step ahead. Listening isn't passive. It's one of the most powerful tools for influence and control. The less a person speaks, the more they can observe. The more they observe, the more they can anticipate. And the one who anticipates controls the outcome. People have an overwhelming need to be heard. They want to express their opinions, explain their perspectives, and be validated. Those who understand power don't compete for attention. They let others talk. By doing so, they allow people to reveal their weaknesses, insecurities, and thought processes. The more someone speaks, the more predictable they become. They show their emotional triggers, their decision-making patterns, and their personal biases. This gives a strategic advantage to the listener, who now has the ability to respond with precision, using the exact words and actions that will create the desired outcome. In any negotiation, the best negotiators listen more than they speak. They allow the other person to lay all their cards on the table, to explain their reasoning, to justify their stance. Then, with minimal but well-calculated words, they counter with maximum impact. The person who speaks the least but listens the most always holds the upper hand. They are not reacting, they are directing. They are not exposing themselves, they are analyzing. And when they do speak, it's not to prove a point, but to shift the conversation in their favor. Listening also builds trust and influence. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel heard. A person who speaks too much about themselves, their opinions, and their ideas often comes across as self-absorbed. But someone who listens intently makes others feel valued and respected. This creates deeper connections, stronger alliances, and greater influence. When people feel truly heard, they become more open, more cooperative, and more willing to trust. That trust creates leverage in any interaction. A powerful listener also controls emotional dynamics. In conflicts or tense discussions, most people react emotionally, speaking without thinking. But the one who stays quiet, who listens, who absorbs information without immediate reaction, maintains control. They are not pulled into emotional traps. They do not react impulsively. Instead, they allow the other person to expend their energy while they remain composed. And when they finally respond, their words are strategic, impactful, and impossible to ignore. Mastering the art of listening also means understanding what is not being said. Words only reveal part of the truth. Body language, tone, and hesitation reveal much more. Someone might say they are confident, but their body language may show doubt. They might claim to be in control, but their tone may reveal insecurity. A skilled listener picks up on these hidden signals, using them to understand what a person truly thinks, feels, and fears. This deeper level of perception creates an enormous advantage in any situation. In leadership, the most respected individuals are often the ones who speak the least but say the most when they do. They listen to their team, their competitors, their environment. They process information before reacting. They don't waste words trying to prove their intelligence or authority. They prove it through their understanding. And because they rarely speak without purpose, their words carry far more weight than those who talk constantly. Listening also protects against manipulation. Those who speak too much often reveal their weaknesses, giving others the opportunity to exploit them. But those who listen carefully are not easily deceived. They can detect inconsistencies, recognize hidden motives, and see through false narratives. By staying quiet and observing, they maintain control over their own reactions, while gaining a complete understanding of the other person's intentions. The greatest leaders, negotiators, and influencers in history have mastered this skill. They understand that words can be powerful, but silence combined with strategic listening is even more powerful. They do not seek to dominate through volume, but through understanding. They know that the real power in any conversation doesn't belong to the one who talks the most. It belongs to the one who listens with intention. True power is never about how much you say, it's about how intentionally you use your words, your silence, and your presence. The most dominant individuals understand that speaking less forces people to listen more. They recognize that precision in speech creates impact, that the ability to pause before responding shifts the power dynamic, and that energy speaks louder than words. They know that those who control their emotions, who listen more than they speak, and who master the art of observation, always hold the advantage. Influence is not about proving yourself, it's about positioning yourself. It's about understanding that real strength comes not from talking the loudest, but from commanding respect without needing to demand it. The world listens to those who don't waste words, who don't react impulsively, and who let their presence do most of the work. When you embrace this mindset, you stop chasing influence and start attracting it. You stop trying to dominate and simply become dominant. That is the power of speaking less and controlling more.